keeping this inward feeling, we'll read from Affirmations for Self-Healing. This morning's topic is on enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is the spirit of joy channeled through the power of the will. If we want to know joy, we must live always in the full expectation of it. Not even earthly happiness can come to those who demand it glumly, or would work for it with their eyes to the ground. To achieve happiness, one must work with happiness. To achieve divine joy, one must be keenly enthusiastic in everything one does. Never presume, never brush aside that subtle feeling of doubt which attends false emotional enthusiasm. Try always to let God's joy express itself through you. Thus, your enthusiasm will grow, eventually to become His joy. And please affirm with me, with deep concentration at the point between the eyebrows. In everything I do, my enthusiasm soars to embrace infinity. In everything I do, my enthusiasm soars to embrace infinity. In everything I do, my enthusiasm soars to embrace infinity. A little more quietly with deep concentration. In everything I do, my enthusiasm soars to embrace infinity. In everything I do, my enthusiasm soars to embrace infinity. And now in a whisper, in everything I do, my enthusiasm soars to embrace infinity. In everything I do, my enthusiasm soars to embrace infinity. Now silently at the point between the eyebrows, offering the energy up to the superconscious. In everything I do, my enthusiasm soars to embrace infinity. In everything I do, my enthusiasm soars to embrace infinity. Now please pray silently with me. O perfect bliss, guide me, that I express Thee through my every feeling. May my enthusiasm be a channel for Thy joy. Om Shanti Shanti.
Good morning. From Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Ananda. Entitled, May the Niagara of my joys inundate all hearts. May the Niagara Falls of my heart's joy pour unceasingly upon all I meet. May that flooding power drown their difficulties. Let their melancholia then be calmed to contentment by moonbeams of my bliss. Oh, I will be a tornado of laughter, lifting up and destroying superstructures of sorrow, sweeping over endless miles of suffering egos. I will churn up and blow away the troubles from all hearts. In lightning flashes of my mirth, I will swiftly expose to view the panorama of Thy beauty, so long obscured in the nocturnal darkness of unseeing, uncaring minds. Bless me, that by a single shaft of my light, the gathering gloom of ages, nurtured in the dark corners of human minds, be put to flight. Through Thy grace, even one sudden flash of wisdom will dispel the accumulation of dark air, though it lasted countless millions of years. And from The New Path by Swami Kriyananda. This reading is drawn from the chapter Work versus Meditation. Make every minute count, the Master said. The minutes are more important than the years. People who put their whole concentration into working for God find they can also meditate more deeply. When you work for God, not self, Master told us one day, that's just as good as meditation. Then work helps your meditation, and meditation helps your work. You need the balance. With only meditation, you become lazy, and the senses become strong. With only work, the mind becomes restless, and you forget God. Master taught us to consider any work holy that we did to please God, to keep his minister disciples from imagining that their work of teaching and counseling was more important than that of other disciples who served in the gardens. He gave them manual work to do also. On that weekend when Master first sent me to San Diego to lecture, I got a valuable lesson from Carl Swinson, later brother Sorolananda, a fellow disciple in Encinitas. "Look at my hands," I lamented. "They're all seamed with cement. People will think I didn't bother to wash them." "What do you mean?" protested Carl. "They're your badges of honor." Well, it's great to be back once again in Bangalore. Been gone for 2 months in the States. We thought that we'd get to be here for a little while, but we weren't here for long because we hadn't finished our FRO, getting our employment visa and so forth. We had to, after a little break here, which we are grateful for, off to Delhi, where we were a couple of weeks. But we had various visualizations that kept us going, and one was, and this has been mine for months, my visualization was I had my stay visa, my 1-year employment visa, in my hand as I was flying back from Delhi to Bangalore. And every time I'd think, I don't know if I can face another piece of paper. I don't know if I can, handle, one more setback, because it's a big process. And again, you Indians aren't spared, either here, from what I can hear, or heading off to the States in different places. It seems to be somewhat of an international phenomenon where we're having to slog through all of this red tape. But nevertheless, God does everything for the best. And so when we find ourselves challenged in these ways, and of course in life in general, then we always know that it's our responsibility. And that's what it is to be a yogi. That's what it is to work for God, to serve God. Because if we don't take responsibility, then we find ourselves swept away, as most people are in this world, as seeming victims. And they just don't know from one moment to the next when the next brick is going to, come and, collide with them, bounce off their head, giving them, yet more hardships when they feel like they have enough. What is this? And yet there are those times that we find that we really need to go the extra mile. And Ananda seems to have that as a specialty. That every time you turn around, there's another challenge. And every time you turn around, there's more karma that seems to be welling up the spine when you thought last week was a sufficient amount. Perhaps we're amateur astrologers and we have some sense as to how Saturn is creating, excitement in our lives. And isn't this enough? And yet, when we have the right spirit and we have the right attitude in our service, we find that we're able to relax and find some ways where we can appreciate that the perfected God is perfect. Sometimes we think, with this world, we're not so sure, we can have our doubts. That's a mistake. God is perfect and makes no mistakes, ever. Regards that which he gives to us out of love and what he does in this world. And this is, of course, a turbulent time. We find ourselves, with many, many challenges, and it's not easy. But we have to recall that, as the yogis talk about, we chose this. We chose our parents, we chose our circumstance, we chose all these various things that come into our lives. And since it was our choice, We could have perhaps stayed in the astral world for another couple hundred years, but it's a good thing to come down to places like this Earth. There's many planets where one can reincarnate, as Yogananda talked about, because this particular planet tests one. It's like a gymnasium. And there's so many things to do here in order to expand our heart and to brighten our minds. We think that now we're doing good because to some extent we've advanced with the parallel bars. But now we have to challenge ourselves to go up a pole and touch the 2-story ceiling up there. And we don't know if we've got enough strength in our arms to do that. And yet our coach or our guru is always saying, no, that's very good that you've accomplished this, whatever it might be. Now, over here is the next challenge. And we think, well, gee, how about some rest? Okay, you can have some rest. How about 5 minutes? You can have a little cup of coffee, and then on to the next. Well, I think it's good fun for us after all of this FRO. And of course, all of us have our various stories. We could all come up here and inspire and entertain with all the challenges that we go through. But I don't think it's any coincidence. After months, we started this FRO process in February. Hard to believe. Months and months and months of going through all of these things. And we won't go into detail now. We want to spare you. But nevertheless, here we come back. And now, okay, off to Vijayanagar. It's a campaign, and fill the hall of 350 people. We're going, whoa, wait a minute, I've got to fill my own hall of my heart and brain. I've got to recover. Wait a minute. And yet, again and again and again, we see this at Ananda. Many, many years ago, Swami Kriyananda had this very large campaign down in San Francisco, Northern California. And we were to fill the Fine Arts Theater. This is where Yogananda spoke. And so we were, really working on that campaign for a very, very long time and so forth. And after that campaign was done, what was my shock when he said, well, next week I want to go and do another hall. And I thought, well, wait a minute, we're a bit exhausted. You want to go and do it again? And some of us tried to talk him out of it, but he wouldn't budge. It was the next campaign. Years ago, too, we did a very large fair, and this took us even more time than what I previously mentioned, going down to San Francisco and filling the hall. It was months and months and months of effort doing this fair. And again, after we were done, he wanted to do another fair. And this time my knees were almost shaking with fatigue. And yet Divine Mother was so much fun. She was having so much fun because this particular fair, the first fair was in town, nearby Nevada City. This fair was here at Ananda. And Swami wanted to do it a little different. So he wanted to have animals there for the kids. And chickens and sheep and all these various things and so on. I'm just thinking, my God, where are we going to get? Cows and maybe elephants, I forget now. And so I remember one time we were just so blasted and there was so much to do with promotions and so on. And then the chickens got out. And they were running around everywhere. There were 30 of them or so on. And at one point, you had to laugh. That's all, because in this world, laugh or cry. You had to laugh because it was so ridiculous. Here we were with our knees shaking from fatigue, chasing chickens. And it was like, who thought of the idea of having animals in the first place? Oh, it was Swami. Ah, okay, well, he must know what he's doing. And God does know. The Divine Mother knows what she's doing. She doesn't make any mistakes. And so for us, it's always, with this campaign, Vijayanagar and fill the hall and all the various things. The main thing, and it's the ongoing lesson at Ananda, is to stay in joy and to leave everything in God's hands. And at Ananda, I could tell you of all of the many successes that we've had, and I could also give you all of the war stories and so forth. All of us could. Why is this? Because it's all to add up to zero. And when I first heard Swami Kriyananda say it all adds up to zero, I thought, no wonder it's so difficult to get people to join in this campaign, the big campaign, to find God. Because, my friends, all this sadhana that we do and so forth and so on, it's all going to add up to zero. And when finally we go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the permanent state of freedom, which is, of course, our destiny, then we'll look back at this dream, which of course it is, and it'll be like it didn't even exist. And we think, my gosh, what is this? What is going on here? And yet joy is the great lubricant, because we find ourselves as half-baked saints, as we like to talk of us at Ananda, at this present state. Nevertheless, we have come so very far. And so as we go into this next campaign, and of course we hope that you will enjoy, enthusiastically join in putting out the posters and making the phone calls and all the various things, because these people in Vijayanagar, it may even be one person that their life is changed, even though there could well be, and as of course we hope for a large crowd, but one person has their life changed. There's been many times at Ananda where people have said, when we've had tours that have gone, throughout US, throughout Europe, India, and so forth, they say, I feel that you came for me. And as the Master said, I love crowds of souls, but really my preference is even then for one soul, because really when we think about it, that's what we're trying to do. That individual that is before us, we are hoping, whether we're passing them by the street or we're, passing out flyers, whatever it might be, that we are awake enough that we don't miss the opportunity to be instruments, to share the light, the joy, and the love that always wants to pass through us at all times, uninterruptedly. And so this campaign really is a campaign both for ourselves inwardly, to expand our hearts and so forth, and to pour out even more energy to be instruments for the Spirit. But also it's to touch those souls. And for a long, long time since the thought came, let's go off to Vijayanagar. And again, Yogananda loved his campaigns. He was always excited to find out how is it going with his latest radio show, and it just goes on forever, all the various things. But I have spent a lot of time, I was mentioning the visualization of having my stay visa there on the plane, me holding it and thinking, oh my God, this is heaven. I've also been meditating a lot, and it's a wonderful thing to do, especially because we're about a month out before we are there in the hall, to visualize those souls that are meant to be there. And their lives will be changed, possibly forever. Maybe they never heard of Yogananda. Maybe they never heard of Kriya Yoga and all of these various things that this path has to offer. And they come, they see a poster, they see a flyer, and they think, I think I'll go see. I don't exactly know what it's about, but let me go see. Others, of course, will be very enthusiastic. They'll have read the autobiography of a yogi and they'll think, oh my gosh, right in my neighborhood. Fantastic. I can walk there. And that's wonderful too. Years ago, we still have our incense and oil company, I think. Roma and I haven't been in Ananda Village in California for 15 years, and so I'm not the one to get current events and news items. But years ago, we did have our incense and oil company, and we made it from scratch. And I would sell these products. That wasn't the only product, the Ananda products, here and there and everywhere in Northern California. And I remember one time, I don't know why I was astonished, but I was. This fellow came up to me, and one of our favorite questions to ask is, how'd you get to Ananda? And he said, oh, I bought some incense. And I thought, that I've never heard. As a matter of fact, I haven't heard it since. But I thought to myself, you never know. You'd never know. Some distant relative or something like that says, "Oh, have you read this book? Autobiography of of a yogi." Out there in the foyer, we have our cricket star that's happily displaying the autobiography of a yogi. How many people, unbeknownst to them, go to a cricket game, see their superstar, and in the back of their head, they kind of remember somehow that he was on the spiritual path. Let me look into that. We don't know. We don't know how we're going to touch people. But as I often think, we've been pulled out of the water by God's grace. We could have easily had an incarnation, and we had many of them, where we just, did all the things that everyone does and made a living and this and that, all great stuff. But we had no inner life. This life is different. We've been pulled out of the water. We're on the boat. But as we gaze out there, we see a lot of people they're trying to swim toward the boat. We're thinking, oh my gosh, this isn't an isolated few. There are many that are trying to, whether they know what they're doing or not, they're trying to swim to safety. They're trying to swim to a place of security, a place of love and joy and all the spiritual qualities that we're all seeking in common. And they know that if they keep up the effort in time, God will, because self-effort draws grace, God will come and save them. And so in this campaign, once we're done with service, we're going to have a meeting. We hope that you'll join us. We're going to feed you while you're having the meeting. That's, there's always these tricks, So first get your food, and then we'll have the meeting while we're eating. At least that's my plan. I don't know what Roma has in mind. But anyway, it'll be a short meeting. Those are the most attractive. Let's see what we can do in bringing creative ideas and the thought of going the extra mile and reaching those souls, because there are those that have not reached that point yet. It may be next month that they do, that they have what we have. And what we have is very, very, very precious. Remember, as Yogananda said to one of the monks who was going through a hard time, and he said, remember, it takes very, very, very good karma even to want to know God. It's a very strong statement, even to want to know God. And we're doing more than that. We're working on our sadhana and our seva and all the things that we possibly can in order to, hopefully, reach God this lifetime. Eventually, why not now? That's the spirit that Yogananda liked. And eventually, that's the downside of reincarnation. Well, it's just another incarnation. I'll just kind of sit in the hammock and drink my nimbu pani and call it good. Whereas, well, there does come a point where the soul becomes really so keen on finding God that there's no stopping. May this be that incarnation for all of us, where we find God in this life. So, we're all warriors. We're not just road warriors here in Bangalore. We are in Delhi, and Delhi has a lot of road warriors too. You commute a lot yourself, both sides. We're warriors for God. And that's very, very important, because that's really the need of the hour, for more and more people to be seeking God wholeheartedly, with enthusiasm. What does enthusiasm mean? In God. Enthus, in God. We want to keep up our enthusiasm, but especially in this next month. That's important as we do what we can to reach souls that are hungry for the light.